This episode of the Final Furlong podcast is brought to you by the 2024 Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide. Order now to secure your copy and use the bonus code FF24CF to get £5 off your purchase. It's the complete guide to the festival with every fact, stat and trend covered to help you make the most informed bets throughout the best week of the year. To get £5 off your purchase of the print and digital editions as well as the print and digital bundle, use our exclusive bonus code FF24CF at checkout at weatherbyshop.co.uk.
Welcome to the Final Furlong podcast, or what we should call the Emergency Constitution Hill special, because the three of us just did our championship preview for Cheltenham, and the second we all got off air, chaos as our phones light up. The news about Constitution Hill is not good. As we're recording this now, he's still in, but we're going to play you the clip of him doing his gallop. I sent this to Lizzie Kelly, and she said, which of the two is Constitution Hill? And when I told her, no, he's not the two at the top, he's in the green out the back, she did not believe me for well over a minute and said there is no chance that horse goes to Cheltenham. I spoke with Ross Millar, Katie Young and George Gorman, who of course are regulars on the Final Furlong podcast. They all retain hope that he can make it, but none of them really believe that he can. Question for you then, Paul Ferguson, is somebody who has interviewed Nicky Henderson on numerous occasions. I'm sure you've seen the Racing TV interview. He looked crestfallen, not good at all, and highly unlikely that he would make Cheltenham now on the back of that.
I'd certainly be no expert. I'm not in this at the same capacity to speak as the people you've just touched upon in terms of horse welfare, but to my eye, it didn't. It didn't. It certainly looks like he'd be up against it, to say the very least. And I think that was the words that Nicky actually used. He did refer to the fact that he could be over it within a week. I've only literally just seen the clip, to be honest, of the interview. He said that there's a chance he could be over it within a week on antibiotics, but I wouldn't. You looking at that, you would think. You would think there has to be a strong possibility that unfortunately he won't be there, but never know at this stage. We live in hope. Obviously, it'd be bitterly disappointing if he wasn't to turn up, because an already weak in terms of strength and depth champion hurdle would look pretty thin on the ground if he doesn't run.
We are still waiting for full word about what has happened, but Adam, there's a number of concerns. First of all, he's gone for a racecourse gallop. You would imagine that's putting the finishing touches on his fitness. I know that Nicky was saying beforehand that he was pretty much fit enough already, but that would have been the final piece of the puzzle, and it's gone terribly badly wrong. He's now going to have to be on the easy list for a few days anyway, so even if he was to make it to Cheltenham, he would still be compromised.
Yeah, he would be. I saw a really good short video from Ross Millar, actually, when he explained about the antibiotic process, and it's sort of, they're either 5 or 10 day courses. I don't know. I guess for me, like, judging from Nicky's reaction on that Racing TV interview, he looks like a man who's decided he's probably not going. So obviously they'll wait for the lab results. They'll see what it shows. You know, he can get over it. It's not impossible. Lots of people I see have been tweeting about how this happened with Binocular in 2010, and he was out of Cheltenham and then somehow made it and ended up winning. But I don't know. It kind of makes a bit of a... I really hope he does make it, because otherwise this race is even worse than it was before. I think we'll just replace 1 to 4 on favourite with another. You know, speaking as someone who had a couple of dirty each way bets on State Man, I'm not entirely haven't lost my mind over it, but it's really sad for racing if he's not there, because suddenly the champion hurdle, well, they may as well move it to the end of the card, because it will just be the most pointless race.
In Nicky's defence, if they had run him in the Beulah, which this is the second time he scoped bad in the space of a month and a half maybe, on what he did today in that racecourse gallop, he would have been lapped. So not going to the Unibet hurdle makes absolute sense. But doesn't that in itself tell you that he's not going to make Cheltenham? Because if Nicky has been telling that great interview with Matt Brocklebank last week where he's saying, well, you can't have him, he can't run if he's not right. Well, he's clearly not right there. And if you spent all season saying we're not going to run him in the Fighting Fifth because of the ground and its close proximity to the Christmas hurdle, we're not going to run him in the Unibet hurdle because he scoped bad, we're not going to run him in the Irish Champion hurdle because it's an away day on Willie Mullins' playground, then how in the name of God could you run him in the Champion Hurdle on the back of that 2 weeks later?
Yeah, I'd say there that is another valid point, is the fact that he has scoped badly. Sorry, when end of January, or probably before trials day. So he must have thought he was obviously fully over the effect, but something's obviously been lingering for a bit of a period of time now, which would be probably something that I'd be more concerned about. Is like, it's obviously gone on now for a spell of time. I'm sure that Nicky and his team must have thought that he was fully recovered, because you wouldn't take him to a racecourse gallop expecting anything to go wrong. If they thought there was any chance of that, I would have thought he'd be kept behind closed doors for his last couple of pieces of work. You would have thought, because you would know that you can't go to a racecourse gallop nowadays without the cameras being on you, or someone will have some sort of footage. So they must have. You can only assume that they thought he'd fully recovered, and maybe it's a completely different issue. But you would imagine that it's a reoccurrence of the same thing, I would have thought, and that then becomes a more alarming concern, I would have thought, because you say that's probably been going on now for the space of well over a month, whatever it is that's causing the issue.
Yeah, the yard form has got to be a bit of a pointer as well. I think I'm right in saying they've had the last 13 runners, 6 or 7 have failed to finish. So maybe there's something in the yard, no one really knows. Hopefully he keeps Sergino as far away from Constitution Hill as possible. But I guess they're not going to take a risk, and the fact it's happened in public has probably forced their hand in terms of going out straight away and saying we found the issue. But I don't know. There's part of me thinks he's 5-4 non-runner no bet with one firm, and that kind of like makes you think maybe I should look at that. But I reckon he's got to be 3-1 to turn up.
Yeah, I'd nearly go even bigger than that, actually, from just to run. They've had 13 runners from Nicky Henderson's yard in the last 14 days. 1 winner. 6 horses have been pulled up. In fact, it's 7. And they were not massive prices. They were 6-1, 11-2, 4-1, 12-1, 9-2, 9-2, and 12-1. Something's not right. And that'll be one of the greatest training performances of all time if they can pull it back. And if I remember correctly, wasn't Binocular ruled out of the Champion Hurdle in January? He wasn't ruled out 2 weeks before the race.
No, I can't remember exactly. But I think it wasn't as close to the Champion Hurdle as this, I'm sure.
It's a real shame, because he would have absolutely crushed this field. Absolutely laughed at them. Look, we'll proceed under the idea that he is going to be there, but there's going to be musical chairs as well, because the implications of Constitution Hill missing the Champion Hurdle means Lossiemouth could potentially slot in, although Paul does not agree with that. Irish Point will almost certainly slot in to the Champion Hurdle. Paul, we've only got you for another few minutes, so let's talk about your thoughts on the Champion Hurdle now. Constitution Hill is still there. He's miles clear on time form. I think he's 10 pounds clear on time form, and he still has a P beside his name with that 188, whereas State Man, they're of the opinion 178 is the absolute limit of his capabilities, or the maximum capability that he has. It's also worth pointing out that the excellent work Paige Fuller does with Race IQ shows Constitution Hill gains ground at his hurdles, whereas State Man loses ground. So even if they did meet and Constitution Hill is back to top form, he'll win, basically. But I'd agree with Adam. He's odds against to even make the race now at this point. How do you now approach a Champion Hurdle where State Man has become the odds-on favourite, Paul?
I think, to be honest, trying to look at the race now, like minutes after that news has come through, is probably not the ideal thing to do. You probably need best to everyone to let the dust settle and things before you dive in. By the time people get to watch this, by the time it's put out later on, there might be a bit more news, but I'd say it'd be in the next day or two before we hear anything else, I would have thought. I don't know how long these things take, but I wouldn't expect any knee-jerk reaction right away. Look, when we recorded earlier, I think we were all it was a unanimous call that he'd win convincingly like he did last year. In terms of natural ability, I'd still go along with that, but even if he does make it to the race, it's far from an ideal preparation, whereas State Man has obviously gone through his season. He's not as good a horse as Constitution Hill, we know that, but he's gone through the season without any issues and won his 3 Grade 1s. So that'd have to be factored in. As you say, for players, we were talking about who might make up the field earlier. and we were struggling for numbers then, and it might well be the case. I can't see, if Stateman's there on the day, and there's no reason why he won't be at this stage. I can't see Lossiemouth rerouting from the mares personally, just because Constitution Hill's out. I don't see why that would really make them change their mind. Irish Point, on the other hand, who yourself and Adam will go on to look at both the mares hurdle and stayers hurdle. I was in the same camp as Adam that Irish Point was my idea of the stayers hurdle winner. So I'd be slightly disappointed, but I could see more reason why you might take a chance now, especially if the ground's soft. Obviously, without Constitution Hill, he's probably looking at only having Stateman to beat, assuming Lossiemouth does still go with the mares hurdle, where she would look to be the one to beat herself. So yeah, there's going to be a small field, 4 or 5 runners. He'd be an interesting runner, Irish Point, but I thought prior to this news, he would have been at best playing for 3rd place. Whereas in the stayers, he looked to have held a leading chance with the same owner-trainer combination as Tihupu. So it'll be interesting. I think we'll probably find out more. But again, I don't think any decisions will be made until things become clearer with Constitution Hill, really.
And who is your pick for the stairs hurdle in the absence of Irish Point, assuming Constitution Hill is out and then Gordon goes for the champion hurdle with him?
I think Tihubu is probably the one to beat there. Then, but he would, again, the proviso would be soft ground. Crambo's the up-and-coming one this side of the Irish Sea, but I had Irish Point a fair way ahead of him. To be honest, he finished 17.5 lengths ahead of him in the Mersey Novice Hurdle at Aintree last year. And again, equally on both upward curves. So whether, again, this probably will have an impact on where Irish Point ends up, but for me, his best chance of winning the Cheltenham would still probably be in the stayers hurdle than taking on Stateman personally.
The good news, for me anyway, with the Constitution Hill development is that Paul is now on my team with Tihupu, but Adam and I will delve further into this. Only by default, but we'll delve further into this in the stairs hurdle a little bit later on. Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide is available for you to buy right now at weatherbyshop.co.uk or weatherbyshop.ie. The promo code to get you £5 off your purchase of the Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide. Digital copy, print copy, or the print and digital bundle is FF24CF. That's FF24CF. £5 off your purchase of the essential guide for Cheltenham. Stats, trends, profiles, Rory Delargy's Banker or Bust, Sam Turner's expert tipping insight, Jess Stafford with some brilliant pedigree angles, and of course, horses to follow for the spring from Paul Ferguson. And Don McLean does a brilliant profile of the Irish runners as well. That is available for you right now at weatherbyshop.co.uk. Do not bet on Cheltenham without Paul Ferguson's excellent Weatherbys Cheltenham Festival Betting Guide. Paul, we'll chat to you again very, very soon, my friend.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy the rest of the show. Bye.
Adam, in the presumed absence of Constitution Hill, interesting to note that the sponsors, Unibet, who also sponsor Nicky Henderson, have gone odds against about him. Now, they are not non-runner, no bet, I should say. They go 6-4. So that's kind of telling you where this is heading. He is not going to line up, or at least it's highly unlikely that he does. Does anything appeal to you now? Is this, because in my mind, this is now a case of, first of all, I'm kicking myself that I didn't back Stateman, and I really mean I am kicking myself that I didn't back Stateman. But anyway, to me, this market is now just whole mad tough.
It is. I mean, I think so. So if they're going 6-4, that probably takes into account the fact that they've probably got quite a few multis with him in. Before the season started, he was sort of 4-6, so there'll be a little bit of that. I mean, what price should Constitution Hill be now? Probably he should be whatever price you think he is to turn up in the race. So I think 3-1 is fair. That's where I'd be sort of thinking. I'm not going to back a horse. I don't know what his health is like. So, but that's probably where I'm thinking. So by that logic, if I think Constitution Hill should be 3-1 to turn up, then I've probably got to make Stateman 1-3. You can back Stateman right now at 4-6. There is an angle that says go and have a little poke on Stateman, but I would imagine that price on Stateman is hinging on the results of this laboratory test. You know, I don't want to bet on laboratory tests. One thing I would say is if you wanted to have a bet now, or indeed if Constitution Hill doesn't run, then Irish Point becomes interesting to me. If I think Irish Point is going to win the Stayers, I've got to think that he's good enough to at least chase home State Man in the Champion Hurdle. And when I look at this Champion Hurdle field, let's imagine Constitution Hill doesn't run. We've got State Man. And then what? Lossiemouth is definitely going to run in the mares, because why would the yard throw 2 darts at one race when they could potentially win both with odds-on favourites? So then you're looking at like, well, Not So Sleepy's going to run. Lovely horse. The age of 12, I can't be having him. Colonel Mustard's not good.
Did you see the tweet today?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
Huey Morrison just wins Twitter every single time, but today's one, we'll put it up on the YouTube for those who are watching. It's Thierry Henry reaching out to Jamie Carragher's leg when they announced that Brendan Rodgers was being fired.
Okay, yeah. I didn't realise that was Not So Sleepy. I've just seen the picture. Yeah, okay, I'm with you now. Yeah.
But it's not so sleepy as Henry. It's brilliant.
Well, I mean, then you're starting to look and think, I think if Constitution Hill doesn't run, the Mullins yard probably think about Zarak the Brave, don't they? In terms of, they must be looking and thinking, well, at worst, we'll chase home State Man. So he's got to come into the mix. I don't think anything else is good enough, quite frankly. And let's face it, it's not like State Man was a 10's chance. State Man is head and shoulders above the rest. And if Constitution Hill doesn't turn up, I'd expect State Man to probably go off at 2-7, 1-4. Irish Point is... Maybe I'm just thinking that he would win the Stayers easily, but I'm also thinking the Champion Hurdle, he's probably the second best horse by some distance, on the assumption that the Constitution Hill doesn't make it. So there is probably a little bit of juice in his price from an each way perspective, because if you're looking at genuine grade 1 performers, State Man is the big dog, but Irish Point is probably the next best. But that being said, I mean, you can't have a bet until you really know with Constitution Hill, in my opinion. You'd have to, because you're betting on the vet. And let's face it, if they turned Constitution Hill around, got him well, and he turns up on the day, what price is he going to be? He's still going to be the odds-on favourite. So it's far too much of an impact on the market for me to form a strong opinion. What I will say is I think it forces Irish Point into the race. I think if they were 50-50, unless the ground came up good and they gave Tihupu no chance, Irish Point surely comes here now. I don't know. It's just such a mess. You shouldn't really have an instant bet, because you know what? They might turn around and say 5 days of antibiotics and the Fab's back in which case he probably still wins. But I just don't. I'm not really sure where I'd want to put my money right now. It's from what we recorded this morning when I thought, well, Constitution Hill's a certainty, State Man's a certainty to finish second. My logic should be, if Constitution Hill's out the way, State Man's a certainty to win the race. And I think most people will be of the opinion that one of those two will win the Champion Hurdle easily. So do I really want to be trying to find some sort of clever each way for the place money? I don't think so.
Yeah, I feel obliged to play devil's advocate here. Irish Point was beaten by Marine Nationale in the Royal Bond. Marine Nationale's Arkle aspirations have taken a dent after being beaten in the Irish Arkle. Does Barry Connell fork out the 22 grand to supplement for the Champion Hurdle with Constitution Hill out of the way?
No, he doesn't. And the reason he doesn't is because the horse Marine Nationale beat in the Supreme, Facile Vega, has been proven to be a bit of a boat. So... And I just think you have to look at if you look at Marine Nationale's hurdle form in isolation, he beat Facile Vega and Diverge. Neither of those horses would lay a glove on State Man in a 2-mile hurdle. So you could go to the Arkle with a good chance if you can get Marine Nationale right, or you could come to the Champion Hurdle and finish second. You've got to roll the dice for the Arkle, surely. And what do you, if their long-term plans with Marine Nationale are that he is perhaps the champion chaser of the future or a Ryanair horse of the future, what's the point in dropping back to a hurdle race? Now, if something happens to State Man, by all means. Because if Stateman was, God forbid, he was to get injured, suddenly we'll have a 20-runner champion hurdle with all these handicappers rolling the dice because it becomes wide open. But all that's really happened today is if Constitution Hill is out, then we've just replaced 1 to 4 on favourite with another one.
Yeah, I think that's the best way of looking at this. Stateman is the most likely winner. I don't think he has it all his own way with Irish Point in the field. And I think Irish Point is a serious weapon. And I would prefer him in the champion hurdle to the stayers. But look, I'm very biased on that because you know that I'm up to my eyeballs on Tihupu for the stayers. So get him out of the way, please, Gordon. Thanks very much. But I actually do think, particularly on soft ground, he would give Stateman a real run for his money. And I need to look at Paige Fuller's race IQ data on Irish Point, but I know that Stateman loses ground at his hurdles. You were saying in the previous show that you didn't think Stateman handled the old course as well as he handled the new course, which I thought was an interesting angle too. He's the most likely winner, but it's not like he's going in as the bomb-proof favourite that Constitution Hill was.
He's not, but the whole makeup of the race changes. Because if Constitution Hill's not in there, then Paul Townend can just take a lead. I mean, I'd imagine Not So Sleepy will make the running, probably. You know, would Nikki Henderson run Lucia in the race if Constitution Hill's not there? Don't know.
She was going to run. She was going to run anyway.
She was going to run anyway, but I wonder quite what the plan was with running her. I'm not sure. Zarek the Brave, maybe he'd run, and they.
Sorry to cut across you, but like in the previous show, I was tipping Shishkin to win the Gold Cup, and I'll be completely honest. Like I spent hours in the form book yesterday, hours. And I was looking at Barry Connell's stable form and going, geez, I don't know about how he's been doing this season. I think Mouse Morris has had 2 winners all season in Ireland from 44 runners. He's had 2 winners in the UK from 3 horses to run, but only 2 winners all season in Ireland. He has had 13 horses place over hurdles from, I think, 27 or 28 runners. But I never looked at Nicky Henderson's stats. And my God, that's awful. Like I could not back Shishkin for a Gold Cup if his stable form continues this way. But at least I've seen Shishkin, and he's won a Gold Cup trial, and 4 horses that have won that race in the last 17 years have emerged victorious in the Gold Cup. But this is a long-winded way of saying I wouldn't like Lucia for this at all, given the stable form.
No, I don't. I mean, what I would say, if we assume Constitution Hill is out, then maybe actually 1 or 2 more horses might turn up. And the reason I say that is because before all this happened, you had Constitution Hill and Stateman, £10 clear of the rest at least. Yeah. Suddenly, if one of those is out of the way, a few sets of connections might look and think, well, we could finish 8th or 9th in a county hurdle, or we could finish 3rd in a champion hurdle. And that might just persuade if 1 or 2 more sort of not social runners, but those that are sort of hovering over the handicap route as to what they're going to do, to think, well, maybe we'll come and have a go. Now, I'm not certain on that, of course, but it maybe opens the race up a little bit. I would still think Stateman is the most likely winner because without Constitution Hill, the race becomes about Stateman. Paul Townend doesn't have to think about anything else. He can just ride Stateman the way he's been riding him, and it should be enough. I guess the other thing I would say in my please, Gordon, listen to me and run Irish Point in the stayers hurdle is surely if Constitution Hill's not there, the connections will look at Bob Ollinger and think he's chased home Stateman once, he could do it again. Maybe. Now, obviously, I know they've got his Aintree in mind, I think is their big plan, and fair play to him, probably. But there's just that little voice in my head that thinks, well, maybe they'll look and think we could pick up 2nd place in a champion hurdle with him. It's not, let's hope Stateman makes it, because otherwise this becomes one of those kind of like throw the balls up in the air champion hurdles. But I was really sort of, I don't know. I can't make head nor tail of this race, so I can't have a thought about it. The only thought I would agree with what Paul said, that there's no way Lossiemouth runs here. Because surely, why would the stable take on their own horse effectively? You know, that would be my main thought is what would be the point?
Well, they might have done it if Gala Marceau had won the other day. But suddenly the mare's hurdle hand has gotten weaker. And they've got a reasonable backup in Echoes and Rain. Like I would imagine that this is her final season in training. They've tried her in the mare's hurdle a couple of times. It doesn't work. I don't think she stays over that distance, which is ironic because she gets 2 miles on the flat doing handstands, but 2 mile forward just seems to stretch her a little bit. Soft ground. Willie Mullins with authorised does really well at Cheltenham. She's no longer the 40-1 shot that she was. I think she is with Unibet still because they're not non-runner no bet. But if you're betting with everybody else, she's like, this is the thing. Like a horse like Echoes and Rain would really interest me, but they are pricing up all of these horses as though it's race day. And they're trying to get them to as close the price that they would be on race day. But that's not actually accurate. And you were talking earlier on about the over-round for the Ryanair, which is just embarrassing. Is it 90% or 80% of the book is taken up by 2 horses? One who definitely won't run in El Fabiolo, and the other in Banbridge, who's a serious doubt if the ground is soft in the description. Unless there's good, he will not run. So, like Echoes and Rain's a 20 shot at least on the day, and yet you're being asked to take 16-1 now. And you are almost certainly now going to get 8 runners. The idea of, like, that's the other thing. You look at the vast majority of these bookmakers, they're going 2 places a quarter of the odds. You will get 3 places on the day because if he's not there, if Constitution Hill is gone, everyone's going to flood this race.
Yeah, I think you might find that if he's not there, so like that Nimian line would be one I'd think of would probably take their chance. You know, again, I wouldn't want to back any of these each way because I think the win price is just wrong. Most of these horses would be 50s if we were talking win only. So why would I want to take 20s? But there's a possibility there. I mean, this race it still revolves around one horse. We just switched to another one. State Man, I don't think is quite as bomb-proof, but I still think he's got so much form in the book that he'll scare off enough to sort of leave him around that kind of 1-3, 1-4 mark. And I think it makes Paul Townend's job so much easier because he doesn't have to think now. He can just ride State Man like State Man, who bolts up every time he turns up at Leopardstown. So it's messy. It has more of a knock-on effect on probably the Stayers Hurdle because it will take the most likely winner of the Stayers Hurdle out because he'll almost certainly go for the Champion Hurdle now. And why wouldn't they? If you're Gordon, you can think, as long as it's soft ground, we've got a great chance in the Stayers. We've got a very good chance in a Champion Hurdle. So, you know, it hurts a bit for the Stayers Hurdle for me because it leaves what I thought was the most likely winner going to the wrong race. But fair play to them. I can see why they would do that.
He's the bet for me. He's also the one horse that I think might stop Bob Ollinger turning up here. But that's a really good point. If Bob Ollinger was supplemented, I think it's 22.5 grand. He has 5 lengths to make up at State Man, but say they get soft ground, maybe even if they got his heavy ground. He's bolted up in a Raquel. You're at Cheltenham. He goes really well at the Cheltenham Festival. He's won twice there. He'd be very interesting. Very, very interesting.
You would do. I think they'd look at it. If it's 20 odd grand to supplement in, you've got to finish in the first 4 to get that back. Well, I think we can pretty much say Bob Ollinger is capable of finishing in the first 4 in the form he's been in this season. The scenario in my head would be if the ground dried out and they thought by the Thursday it was going to be good to soft, that's when they might be looking at the long-range weather forecast and thinking, okay, we'll supplement Bob Ollinger in because then we can have 2 darts at the Stayers Hurdle if the ground turns against Tihupu. But I don't know. I don't really know the inner workings of Rob Cornell. That's going to sort of all play out. But I think what you'll probably find with the Champion Hurdle is if Constitution Hill is out, maybe 1 or 2 who are running in the Mares Hurdle, like Echoes in Rain, with a bit of suspect stamina, they'll probably definitely go in the Champion Hurdle. Suddenly, you might scrape an 8-runner race together, but I still think the favourite will win. I'm not sure I'd want to be massively against State Man, but if the ground was really bad or, Irish Point, if I knew he was definitely going to run, would probably be a fair each way bet because I think you'll probably get 9-2 about him, something like that. Well, if he turns up, he's definitely going to be in the 3 in the absence of Constitution Hill.
Yeah, I'm just refreshing the page to make absolutely certain he is still at that point. He is. He's 6-1. He's 9-2 at one firm, but he's generally a 6-1 shot. You can get 14-1 about him, and that would be my bet because there's no way he'll be double figures. And you won't get bigger than 5s on the day. And I don't think you'll even get that. So for those who are going each way, 1, 2, 3, Irish Point is the scumbag each way angle in the champion hurdle. Do it, Gordon. Do it. Because if he's in the champion hurdle, then it makes my bet in the stairs hurdle look a lot better. Which is very much Tihupu, who has already been cut by one firm into 9-4 on the back of this news, because they're already anticipating that his stable companion will indeed go for the feature race on day 1 as opposed to the feature race on day 3. Tihupu 3-1, Irish Point still a 7-2 shot, but unlikely to run, you would think. Crambo for Fergal O'Brien, who will be on the show tomorrow, 6-1. Noble Yates, who won the trial for this on Trials Day at Cheltenham, a 10-1 shot. Surely he needs 9 miles these days. Sir Gerard, a 10-1 shot. Flooring Porter, former dual winner of the race, and to be fair to him, had a setback in the lead up to the race last year, 14-1, and it seems as though his connections are very much considering it. The old boy, Paisley Park, a former winner, 16-1. What does this mean in your mind now with the Constitution Hill news for the stairs hurdle, with your main selection basically, we think, being rerouted to the Tuesday? Do I dare even mention the fact that your real main selection is on the sidelines in France? This has not been a good race for you, basically, Adam.
It's not. I'm just going to have a cup of tea and just start studying the plate. I think, I don't know. This race just... I mean, the first thing I'd say is, if Phelan was here, he'd win by a furlong. This is such a weird race. Irish Point should be running here, but they're going to be lured by the champion hurdle. Can just see it, and I think Gordon would just love to get one over Willie. So I just think he probably will think. The other thing I would say with Irish Point is he's only 6, so you could have a run in a champion hurdle now. If it doesn't work out, you've always got the stayers for next year. If it's soft ground, I'll have to join you with Team Tihupu, but I'm just not sold on him. I don't like him. If he couldn't win last year's race, why would I back him for this year's? Cranbow, I think, is a good horse, but I always would take the view British form is substandard compared to Irish form. And as good as he was at Ascot, yeah, I can make enough holes in that form to make me think, I don't know, it is as great, as wonderful as Paisley Park and Dashel Drasher and Champ are. They're all double figures in terms of age. They've all been around the track far too many times. None of them are improving. So scraping home past them, you'd like to think there's an Irish horse probably with more in the book. Flooring Porter's definitely interesting, and I think he will probably run here. The noises from the yard would seem to suggest they were seriously considering it, and I think he'd probably be the pace angle. So that would kind of suggest he's a little bit overpriced. The other one who is overpriced if they came here is Monkfish, because he's an Albert Bartlett winner. I know he's got a Gold Cup entry as well, but I just wonder if they would look at this race and think it might be worth chancing him here. Certainly got abilities, obviously, pretty fragile. I don't know. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want to back one of these veterans who's got loads of miles on the clock. If Paisley Park wins, great. What a story for racing. That's enough. But at the same time, I don't want to be chasing 11 and 12-year-olds in a stayers hurdle. So what I will say to you is this looks like it's falling Tihupu's way in terms of at Christmas time, his 2 main challenges in the market. One of them sadly got injured and hasn't made it. The other one's going to reroute to a champion hurdle. If he doesn't win this year, Emmet, he's never going to win one.
That I would agree with. Absolutely agree with. I would just say this is not the first time that I've heard that, well, if he couldn't win it last year, why would he win it this year? Iris's Gift. Iris's Gift was 6 when he was beaten in the stairs hurdle by Barracuda. He came out a year later as a 7-year-old and won it. And my thought process at the time with this horse is, first of all, he wasn't given a very good ride by Davy Russell. That was not Davy's finest hour. And secondly, he probably just lacked the mental maturity and the full physical development to be able to go through with the stairs hurdle. And the biggest tip for this horse is the fact that the second he beats Imperi Pass, who at the time, Imperi Pass was the threat to Constitution Hill. He was the one we were all excited about as being the new champion hurdle kid on the block. And Gordon instantly says, and that's it, straight to Cheltenham. Because he's of the opinion that he was just flat after the Galmoy, that he's just at his best fresh. This is his race. The big French challenger is gone. His stablemate is probably gone. He'll run on the Tuesday. So your big worry is the old boys, and it's been nice to see Paisley Park running so well this season. It's been heartwarming and frustrating for him not to win. I'm pretty sure Emma Lavelle let out an F-bomb in the parade ring at Cheltenham the other day when he didn't quite get up against Noble Yates. He's an admirable horse. Dashel Drasher is a lovely horse. His trainer is someone I have a lot of time for. In fairness, Sire de Burley won this race last year. That form actually looks quite good. Sire de Burley's gone to Aintree and backed that form up by winning the Grade 1 there. Dashel Drasher has come out this season and won one of the Stayers Hurdle trials. He wins. Tihupu just wins. He's better than all of these. And he's got an Irish mark of, 161. Crambo's on 157. So officially, he's the best horse in the race. He's the best horse in the race on time form. Obviously, he's not, because the horse from France has got the best rating, but unfortunately, he's not there. He's got 174 for time form. His RPRs would be high as well. He's on 172, which is £2 clear of last year's winner, Sire de Burley. He's a player. He'll be better than he ran the other day. He'll have needed that run quite badly. It was his first run of the season, and it was the exact same thing last season. He was beaten 10 lengths that day, came out and won the Stayers Hurdle. It's just a little bit worse this time. He's been beaten 25 lengths by Hidden Valley Lake, and the fire didn't seem to be there. But I would not underestimate him at all. He's a dual Pertemps winner. He's a Stayers Hurdle winner. He's a serious player. But if Tihupu can't beat a 12-year-old Sire de Burley, then I really will throw my hat at the wall and say, what are we doing here? And look, the form with Imperial Pass isn't, that's good form. He's then gone and beaten Stateman. Beaten Stateman. He's gone and got close to Stateman, and Stateman's now the odds-on favourite for the Champion Hurdle with the Constitution Hill news. George Gorman was saying to me, I wonder, is it possible the Imperial Pass gets supplemented for the Champion Hurdle? I'm pretty certain Isaac Swade and Sam Munir will be seething that they took him out of Cheltenham, because he would at least be second. At least he'd be second with no Bob Ollinger there. But look, we'll have to see if they do decide to pump him in, and they've got the money to do it. Tihupu wins, basically. And with all due respect to the British, the fact that Noble Yates can beat them, that's some training performance from Mullins. And this is not the way this is supposed to go. You're supposed to win a Stayers Hurdle and then a Grand National, not a Grand National and then Stayers Hurdle trials. But you can't seriously think that means any of those horses are good enough to come and win this. Crambo's the danger. He is a threat. I'm genuinely afraid of him. But I'd be shocked if Tihupu doesn't win it this year. And I think he's a cracking bet at 3-1.
I'm going to throw one at you from really left field, or it should be right field. But a horse at big prize I think will run well in this is Asterion Phalange. Now, you've got to hold me back a little bit, because we all know he's like the ex-wife. You look at him for a minute and then you remember why he's a nutcase. But the one thing I would say about him is his Cheltenham record is not as bad as people make out. Fourth in a Supreme, albeit that the old course doesn't suit him. Fourth in a Supreme, ran pretty well in the Turners, finished third. They tried him in a Gold Cup, which was just a step too far. But what I would say about him is hurdle races on the new course, it favours you to get to the outside rail, particularly on soft ground. And the fact he likes to go to his right means he's going to end up on that outside rail. I don't think he can win, but I do think the Cheltenham new course over hurdles will suit him. And I think they'll have to go here because there's nowhere else really to run him. Yeah. He would sort of half interest me, but it would just be one of those sort of casual bets on the day. Probably I'd go place only. I don't think he's quite got the minerals to win it. But he will run well on the new course, and he'll be one of those that everyone just thinks, because he's a bit of a head case, we'll just ride him off. But on his day, he is quite a talented horse, and it's important to remember his better form is in the spring. Ran really well at Fairy House and Punchestown last year, albeit right-handed. But I wouldn't be entirely writing him off to sort of hit the frame at a big price. But I do agree with you. The way this race is falling, it's Tihupu's time. Everything is in his ballpark, and this is his time to land it.
To be fair, Asterion Phalange, I think, is he 50s?
The firms that are not non-runaway bet, there's a bit of 50s out there, so.
you're talking about a horse that beat Monkfish, who's come out and won the Galmoy Hurdle, and was second to Classical Dream at a track he's basically unbeatable at. I would not be putting you off that at all. And in an open renewal of the Stairs Hurdle, and make no mistake, it is an open renewal, albeit that there's two, to my mind anyway, exciting young horses towards the top of the betting. But still, if one of those doesn't quite come forward, then this becomes wide open. He's massively overpriced. Problem is, he's a coastal path. And coastal paths just need everything to go spot on. Favois was terrific in the County Hurdle last year, but you've seen him since, and he just, everything needs to go right for him. He's probably a player in the County Hurdle again this season, by the way, because he's coming down the weights again. Dan Skelton with a horse dropping in the weights? No, couldn't be. Not for Cheltenham. Langer Dan, anyone? Jesus Christ. You know why Willie Mullins doesn't win handicap chases at Cheltenham? Because his horses are trying. They're all running on their merits. And that's why he can't win handicap chases at Cheltenham. Saint Roy, speaking of, although, Your Honour, may I present Saint Roy, who's been highly tried this season and hasn't particularly performed and may very well bounce back to life in the Grand Annual later this week, or in a couple of weeks' time. But he's another one. Like, he looked like a champion hurdle winner when he won the County Hurdle, but he needs everything to go right. They all do. But at 50 to 1, I would not be putting you up. That's actually a bet that would interest me to go and do potentially now as an Ante-Post play, because he will go here, and I could see him being considerably shorter on the day. But it's my beloved Tihupu, who is the nap of the championship races for me, which brings us to the Mayor's Hurdle. And look, if we're both in agreement that Lossiemouth is still going to run, then the key question that I have to ask you about the 7-4 on favourite is, will she stay?
Yeah, of course she'll stay. I don't really have any... That's never really been in my head that she wouldn't stay. She's a great pretender. You know, I'll be shot for it, but I think Benny de Dieu is the best mare I've seen. Better than Annie Power, better than Apple's Jade, better than any of them. She's a great pretender. She's
better than Quevega.
Yeah, I think so, because I just think Benny had a bit of touch of class about her. And you know, the problem with Benny is really she didn't sort of do it in a way that everyone remembers. She won a Mayor's Hurdle. Everyone remembers the fact that Robbie Power made a mistake on Stormy Island and cost her the Mayor's Hurdle with Honeysuckle. No one ever looks back and says, Benny de Dieu went to France and she didn't just she buried the Boncourt in the French champion hurdle. And de Boncourt, most of the French dads I speak to thought she was bomb-proof. And Benny just went, yeah, I'll go for an away day and I'll beat you. But anyway.
Shots fired, Nicky!
There is a kind of look at Lossiemouth's pedigree. Yes, there's great potential, but the dam won over 12 furlongs on the flat on heavy ground. She's got a half-sister by Sindar, who won over 2 mile 3 in France. But I think the biggest point to this is we're all thinking she's got to stay a really stiffly run 2.5 miles at Cheltenham. I look at the makeup of this race and think there's no massive pace angle. There's not 4 out-and-out front runners. Does she really need to be a dour stayer? This isn't 3 miles. This is 2 and a bit on the old course. And I just think all that Paul Townend's got to do is keep her in contention, because if this race was over 2 miles, what price would she be? 1 to 4? She's definitely the best mare in this race. She's got the best turn of foot. She's got the best form in the book. And the way she won the other day, it wasn't like she limped over the line. She's going away from them. I don't really have any doubts about her staying. I certainly don't want to lay her. Yes, Gala Marceau bombing out is a bit of a shame, but I think we sometimes forget Gala Marceau had a flat career and ran as a 2-year-old, and she's basically had 3 years of almost constant training. So we can perhaps forgive that maybe she's already peaked or maybe she needs more time. I'm not sure. But then if you question what Gala Marceau did the other day, suddenly you start to pull holes in the form of Astro Diamond. Lossiemouth will definitely run here, because this is a penalty kick in my opinion. And the only thing Willie is chancing is, will she stay the trip? But I don't think necessarily this is going to be an end-to-end gallop. Last year's race was pretty steadily run. The first 2 were prominent throughout. So Lossiemouth is really exciting. And I think she'll stay. And I think if you look at other horses that have won Mayor's Hurdles, their stamina wasn't as important as some of their speed. Honeysuckle was a speedy enough horse to win 2 champion hurdles afterwards. Vroom Vroom Mag won this. She had the speed for 2 miles. Annie Power would have won this. She had the speed for 2 miles. It isn't the kind of race that's sort of a desperate gallop. Horses don't win the mare's hurdle and then go up to 3 miles, with the exception of Corvega. But it is the kind of race that I think there's no obvious pace. It's going to be run at a steady enough clip, and I just think Lossiemouth wins. I don't really want to take her on. There are a couple that interest me at big prices. I think Henry de Bromhead will be hoping and praying that it pours with rain. He's got Hispanic Moon, who obviously beat Gala Marceau the other day. I think she's a little bit overlooked, actually. She's got some good form in the book. She's got entries in the Coral Cup and the Martin Pipe as well. I think Cheltenham should suit, but I will have a little alarm bell that she's won 6 times and 5 of those wins have been right-handed. So she's run okay left-handed. It's not like she can't go this way round. She could run well. The other one is Lantry Lady, who's the real unknown. So 2 runs in 2 seasons, but she's won them both. Henry de Bromhead said after the win at Goran that he thinks she needs it soft. But I think if the rain came, they'd probably take their chance. She could be anything, really. She's probably a little bit overpriced, but it's another one of those races where if I think the favourite is a fair price at 4 to 6, 4 to 7, should I really be having an each way bet when I think the win part is probably wrong? Maybe not. But yeah, I've no doubts about her staying. I think Lossiemouth is by far the most likely winner. I think she'll stay. And I think if she wins this, there's nothing to stop them then coming back to 2 miles if they need to.
I would agree with all of that. I'm just looking at my WhatsApp, which is bizarre. It's on the screen here. After you made that point about Nicky Henderson having 7 horses pull up in the last few days, a friend of mine sent me a WhatsApp, not knowing we were having this conversation, saying the exact same thing, that it's 8 days since he's had a winner. So, bit of a question mark. The 2 horses that I was keen to talk about at big prices are Love Envoi, who ran a massive race in this last year, and Marie's Rock. My enthusiasm for Marie's Rock would be tempered by the fact that Nicky's horses are not going particularly well at the moment. But he's got time to pull that through. And I'm pretty sure this happened before, where his horses weren't running well, and then suddenly... Great example is Aidan O'Brien couldn't buy a winner heading to the 2,000 guineas, and then Glen Eagles absolutely bolted up, and they never looked back. So things can change, but it's not ideal. Marie's Rock has run to a rating that would be equal in recent years, anyway, at least at Aintree, to 155, a Racing Post rating of 155, which is what Lossiemouth did the other day. Love Envoi is a horse I'm very keen on, back on soft ground. There can't be any good in the description. It has to be soft. She has 9 lengths to make up with Lossiemouth from the other day, but going up and trip to a race that she ran a career high in last year, you'd imagine Harry Fry can get her back to that level. They're going to sell her after this. She's going to be sold at the Aintree sales because she's part of the Noel Feely Racing Syndicate, and they don't do bloodstock. They don't do breeding. So she's going to be a wonderful broodmare for somebody. Doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to win this race, but even if she came back to the very best that she had last year, do you think that would be good enough to beat Lossiemouth, assuming you're all right and she will stay?
I don't think he will, but I do think there are a couple of positives you can take. The fact she's going to the sales actually means she's going to be primed for her, because this is it. This is the last run of her career. If they thought she can't win a mare's hurdle, you wouldn't run her. You just say, okay, we'll go to the sales. Why would you take the risk? What I would say about last year's race is it was a pretty steadily run affair. I thought she got a really good ride from Johnny Burke, and it kind of developed into a sort of the front 2 were able to control it. Now, that scenario is very possible again, because there's nothing in here that's going to go off like a scalded cat. Maybe Astro Diamond goes forward, but I think I could definitely see Love Envoi hitting the frame, without doubt. What I would be concerned about is if she jumps the last and Lossiemouth, for example, is on terms with her. I think we can all agree that Lossiemouth is a faster horse, and Lossiemouth has got much more improvement to come. I don't think she's peaked, whereas I think Love Envoi has, and we know where she is. But that being said, I think Love Envoi is a much more interesting proposition than Marie's Rock. The Henderson Yard, I don't mind the fact they haven't had that many winners, because realistically, in the weeks leading up to Cheltenham, what is he actually running? He's certainly not running his best horses. I think Nicky generally gets as far as Newbury, and then it's kind of, that's it. If you haven't run before then, you're not likely to go. But the 6 or 7 that have pulled up is a real kind of alarm bell for me. If they're not finishing the race, that is a bit of a concern. But more with Marie's Rock, I just think she's had enough chances. She's had enough chances. I don't really like her attitude in a battle. I think everything has got to fall perfectly right for her. And I just think if she jumped the last on terms with 1 or 2 horses, there are more mares in here with better attitudes than she's got. So, yeah, Love Envoy is it wouldn't surprise me at all if she finished in the frame, but I think Lossiemouth has got to underperform or not stay for Love Envoy to get the better of her.
And to be fair, it's a great performance from Marie's Rock after getting thumped by Bob Ollinger in a race that she had won previously, the Raquel, to bounce back and beat last year's Mayor's Novice Hurdle winner, You Wear It Well, at Doncaster. The problem is You Wear It Well is then stuffed at odds on in her next start, and I mean battered. Now, maybe those two things don't equate, and You Wear It Well just had a really bad off day for Jamie Snowden, but it doesn't exactly fill you with confidence. I do think she's interesting, though, as a former winner of the race for Nicky Henderson with Nico de Boinville on board. 16-1 is intriguing to me. I think Love Envoy is intriguing. I'm probably more in Harry Fry's camp than I am Nicky's, and very concerned about the way Nicky's stable is at the moment. Of the championship hurdlers that we have talked about, who are you most confident about for Cheltenham 2024, my friend?
Well, I'm most confident about Lossiemouth. Out of all of them, I think Lossiemouth is. I just think she's bulletproof myself. But I'm happy to be proved wrong. But I have this kind of view that I'll just stick with winning horses until they're beaten. When Lossiemouth genuinely gets beaten, then I'll know where she is. But right now, I just think she's a class above the standard of mare in that race. So all I'm really having to worry about is, will she stay the trip in what will probably be a field of 10 without an out-and-out gallop being set? I'm quite happy with that. I will still stick to my case that Irish Point should be running in the Stayers, and if he is, he'd be one of my strongest fancies of the festival. So therefore, if I think he'd win the Stayers doing handstands, I've got to think he's got a decent chance of at least finishing second in a champion hurdle. How I would probably play that is, I don't want to be getting involved Ante-Post where I don't know what the favourite's going to do or who's even going to be the favourite. But I might look on the day and think Stake Man and Irish Point are probably a fair way clear of the rest, and I'll just play a reverse forecast because the worst case scenario is I'll get my money back. But it's not a strong fancy because I just think he's not a 2-mile horse. I think they're forcing him to be a 2-mile horse. But if you take into example, he's beaten a few years ago, admittedly, but he's beaten Ile Francais in a Grade 1 bumper. Ile Francais is a 3-mile chaser who's going to win the French Gold Cup and probably win the King George as well. Nothing there in the way that race panned out would suggest to me. I didn't watch that race in 2021 and think, there's the future champion hurdle winner. I thought, there's a really good staying prospect.
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that at all. I'm going to recommend a patent, but this comes with... this is going to wind you up now, by the way, and it's not designed to do that at all. But this is very much at a risk because I think you have to do this not non-runner, no bet. I think non-runner, no bet's a great concession if you want to go and be absolutely certain that you can get your money back if your horse doesn't line up, which is obviously a terrific advantage to have. But you're not getting the fair price that you should. And I think for most of these horses, you will get a bigger price on the day. Not all, but the majority of them, the markets will be much more liquid and much more competitive on the day. So proceed with caution is what I'd say. So this is with the caveat that your money's gone if these horses don't turn up. Irish Point for the champion hurdle is the first one. And that's not designed to piss you off, my man, but 14-1 is just too big. And I'm pretty certain he will go. I'm fairly confident Lossiemouth will win the Mayor's Hurdle, but I don't have much of an interest in backing anything at odds on at Cheltenham. And Love Envoy, I said this earlier in the season, if she can bounce back to the level of form that she showcased last year, she's in the first 3 at least. And if Lossiemouth doesn't stay for some reason, then she wins, I think. And she's 12s. Is that right? We were getting 12s? Oh, we're getting 10s. Oh, shit. They're starting to cop on. Which then brings me to the absolute banker of the championship hurdle races and maybe the best bet of all the championship races. Te-Hoopo wins! All the dangers. I'm pretty sure we sent the snipers over to France to take out Telem, and then we incepted Gordon Elliott's mind. You know what, Gordon? He was dreaming soundly. We put on the inception equipment. You don't really want to run Irish Point in the stairs hurdle. You want to run him in the champion hurdle. And away we go. So Te-Hoopo, this is his year. This is his time. And he will win the stairs hurdle. Adam Mills, you're going to be back with us for more Cheltenham chat in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have, hopefully, stable tours with Henry de Bromhead and Fergal O'Brien to come your way very soon. Katie and George will be back in the podcast giving their insight. Lizzie Kelly will be here with us very, very soon as well, giving some expert insight. And I'm sure we'll have a round of Willie Mullins bingo and Nicky Henderson's stable form watch on the show as well. It's a mad day. We had done this hours ago. Everything was grand. It was all cool, calm, and collected. It was all gravy. And then it was absolute chaos as Constitution Hill fell over the line in that racecourse gallop. I hope he's all right. If he can make the race, that's brilliant. But proceed with caution. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.